Have you ever wondered what the greatest weakness of a man who simply ignores you actually is? That cold indifference that hurts deep inside, making you question everything and believe you're not enough. And what if I told you this behavior, as painful as it is, exposes a vulnerability he's desperately trying to hide? A weakness that, if you learn to interpret it, can become your greatest tool for confidence and understanding. If you want to understand what's really behind such cold silence, stay with me. The answer isn't superficial. It's buried deep within the male psyche, within the shadow that Carl Jung discussed so much, and within that hidden fragility behind his mask of indifference. First, let me invite you to subscribe. Turn on notifications, like this video, comment below, and share it with those who need to understand the mysteries of the male mind. Here, you're going to discover a fundamental truth about his behavior that can change everything in your relationship. Let's get straight to the point. Why does a man ignore you? Why, instead of reacting with anger, sadness, or even desperation, does he simply disappear? The deepest answer lies in a vulnerability he refuses to admit, a fear, a fragility he's hiding at all costs. And that weakness, paradoxically, is what makes him most vulnerable, his inability to face his own shadows. Imagine a warrior who, instead of confronting his enemy, prefers to hide in the farthest fortress, believing he's protected. But that fortress is in truth a prison. The more he avoids dealing with his feelings, insecurities, and fears, the more he confines himself in a cage of silence and ego that only exposes his most profound vulnerability. The fear of being unloved, of failing, or of not being enough. This vulnerability, hidden beneath his indifference, is an opportunity for growth if he has the courage to face it. And if you understand that this weakness exposes him more than you can use it to your advantage. Now think with me, you woman, living through this silence, this absence. Have you tried to understand what it really means? Do you think this indifference is proof he doesn't love you? Or is it in fact a mask of someone afraid to be vulnerable? The answer, rooted in Jungian psychology, is that many times the man who ignores you is facing a shadow he doesn't want to confront, his own fears and insecurities that he refuses to face or accept. That shadow, that part of himself he rejects, is so powerful that it causes him to retreat from the relationship, avoiding vulnerability, avoiding facing his true feelings. And by running away, he's not just destroying your connection, he's exposing his own greatest weakness, which can be turned into a powerful opportunity for growth. Why is this his greatest weakness? Because at his core, every man desires to be accepted for who he truly is, with all his shadows, imperfections, and fears. And when he chooses to ignore you or disappear, what he's really doing is hiding from what he fears most, that he will only be loved selectively, with conditions, or perhaps not at all. His greatest fragility, then, is his inability to accept his own imperfections, his fears, his shadows. Imagine a warrior hiding behind a wall, afraid of being seen as weak or unworthy. But in that very act of avoidance, he is refusing to face himself. And that refusal, if it continues, becomes his greatest vulnerability, because nobody can run forever from themselves. This is the paradox. His weakness, when understood, can be the very thing that sets you free. Because what he fears, to face his own shadows, is also what keeps him bound. And once he recognizes this, you realize that your power lies in your capacity to see beyond his indifference, to understand that his silence is a cry for help. From within, a cry he's afraid to scream. Carl Jung said that the greatest strength emerges when you dare to integrate your shadows. When a man refuses to face his true fears, he becomes a caricature of himself, wearing the mask of indifference, to hide his insecurities. But when he begins to confront his inner darkness, that same weakness, that fear of vulnerability, transforms into a source of strength. Here's a critical thought for you. The more you realize that his indifference is rooted in his own inner struggles, the less it will control your feelings. Instead, it will empower you to stay grounded, knowing that his silence reflects internal battles he's not ready to face. Your resilience and understanding are what will eventually bring clarity to this dynamic. And remember, what we reject in ourselves often gets projected outward. When a man ignores you, it's often because he's projecting his own fears, his doubts, his shadows onto the relationship. His withdrawal is less about you and more about his internal fight, a fight he's too afraid to win. So, my first advice for you, don't interpret his absence as a sign that you're not enough. It's actually a sign of a man wrestling with his own darkness. And that is your invitation to recognize the strength within yourself, to stay true to your worth, and to understand that his weakness is an opportunity for you to grow stronger. If you truly want to change this situation, start understanding that his behavior stems from an internal war, a fear of vulnerability, a shadow he refuses to confront. When you see this, you stop being a victim of the silence and instead become someone who understands the deeper psychological game at play. If all of this resonates with you, stay tuned. In the next part, we will explore how you can turn his greatest weakness into your greatest advantage, how his vulnerability can become an opportunity to build a more authentic connection. Be ready to unlock your inner power and change the course of your relationship. Now that you understand that a man's greatest weakness, his inability to face his own shadows, is actually an opening for transformation, let's explore how you can use this knowledge to navigate your relationship with wisdom and power. The truth is, his silence reveals more about his internal struggles than about your worth. Your response to that silence can either reinforce his fears or help him confront his shadows. The choice is yours. The first step is to stop reacting emotionally to his absence. When a man ignores you, your first instinct might be to chase, to seek answers, or to seek validation. But what if instead you simply paused? What if you gave yourself permission to detach from the emotional roller coaster? Jung said that what we resist persists. Resistance keeps you trapped in pain. Acceptance and understanding set you free. Your power lies in your emotional sovereignty. Understand that his withdrawal is a symptom of his own internal battle. When you stop feeding his insecurities with reactions of desperation, you signal that you are not someone who needs to be rescued or validated constantly. Instead, you become a woman who knows her worth, who is grounded and self-sufficient. Many women fall into the trap of trying to decode every message, every silence, checking stories, sending messages, overanalyzing. But that only feeds the illusion of control he thinks he has. Jung emphasized that projection and obsession with external validation keep the individual trapped in a cycle of pain. So, your role isn't to decode or chase, it's to hold space for your own growth. Hint: the moment you stop reacting to his silence, you're not losing your power, you're reclaiming it. When you stop chasing his attention, the dynamic shifts. You are showing him through your silence and detachment that your worth is not contingent on his validation. This is a critical step because, as Jung pointed out, what we unconsciously seek to avoid, our shadows, are often what we must face to heal and grow. Second, work on strengthening your own emotional independence. Focus on your passions, your goals, your friendships, your hobbies. When a man sees that you are living a full, vibrant life without him, he begins to see you through a different lens, not as someone who needs him, but as someone who chooses her happiness. This shift is subtle but powerful. It's the essence of feminine strength rooted in self-love. Remember Jung's insight that the privileged consciousness is often a mask for unconscious fears. When you stop being overly available or overly reactive, you expose his shadow of insecurity. He begins to realize that your love wasn't based on dependency, but on genuine value. That's when real attraction, not based on neediness or scarcity, can ignite. Third, set healthy boundaries. This isn't about playing games or punishing him. It's about self-respect. If he pulls away and you respond by obsessing or giving in, you send the message that his silence works, that his indifference wields power over you. But if you respond with calm boundaries, showing that your emotional well-being is non-negotiable, you threaten his illusion of control. Here's a simple example. If he ignores you for days, Don't flood his inbox with messages. Instead, calmly take time for yourself. Focus on your self-care, your passions, your social life. When he sees your independence and calm strength, his shadow of inadequacy begins to surface even more. Because, as Jung said, where there is shadow, there is potential for growth. Next, and perhaps most importantly, tap into the power of non-reactivity. When he pulls away, instead of trying to figure out what went wrong, ask yourself, what does this reveal about me? How can I grow through this experience? Your ability to stand firm and emotionally detached is a sign of strength. It also makes him realize that his weapon, the silence and avoidance, no longer affects you. The more you embody this calm confidence, the more his own shadow's weaknesses become apparent. He begins to feel insecure about his ability to control the situation, which is a vulnerable place for him. And this vulnerability, if met with compassion and self-respect, can open the door for true transformation, for him to confront his shadows and for your relationship to evolve into something more authentic. Now here is the key. Always remember that his greatest weakness, his fear of vulnerability, is also your greatest advantage. When you stop feeding his insecurities, you allow him to see that relationships are not based on power, control, or avoidance, but on genuine connection founded in authenticity and courage. Finally, cultivate the mindset that you deserve a partner who chooses you every day, not because they are afraid of losing you, but because they genuinely value your presence. Jung believed that love rooted in authentic self-awareness can overcome even the deepest shadows. But that starts with you, owning your worth, setting boundaries, and refusing to be a prisoner of scarcity mentality. So, if you want to turn his weakness into your strength, stop chasing, focus on yourself, establish boundaries, and walk away when needed, without remorse. Because the moment you do, you are signaling that your love is not a weakness, but a reflection of your inner strength. Stay steadfast, knowing that the man who truly loves himself and faces his shadows will come to value you more deeply. The beau, one who ignores you out of fear or insecurity, may remain in the dark. But the woman who understands her worth will shine brightly regardless, and in that glow, he will eventually find the courage to confront his own shadows, or realize he never deserved your light from the start. Remember, the greatest weakness of a man who ignores you is also his greatest vulnerability, and your most powerful opportunity. Use it wisely, stay true to yourself, and trust that real love is always about authentic growth, not control or avoidance.